All right, hello. Today we are going to be talking about copyright. Um, so I'm sure a lot of you guys know about copyright, or at least have heard about copyright, but our essential question today is going to be, what are the common copyright rules I need to follow when creating, modifying, or researching? Okay? This comes into play anytime that you're going to do a research paper or a project or take from anybody else's work, okay, to help you complete yours. All right? Um, so, vocabulary, okay, some words I want you guys to pay attention to very closely are copyright, obviously, okay, plagiarism, I'm sure you guys have heard of it, credit, giving credit to something or someone, okay, public domain, and fair use, okay. Now, I'm sure most of you guys have heard of these words bandied around a lot, but we're going to go into them in depth, and then you're going to demonstrate what we're going to, your knowledge of them. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and what is copyright? All right, so copyright is the legal right to copy someone else's work, idea, or intellectual property. If there is a copyright on something that you have created, that means no one else can make a copy of it without your permission. Okay, now that doesn't mean that you have to give them verbal permission for every single thing, or you have to get verbal permission from every single person that you copy off the internet. But there are ways that you can get permission or get indirect permission. Okay, so we're going to talk about those. Now, copyrights are automatic. Okay, so anytime you create something and you post it online, it's automatically, well, you don't even have to post it online. You could just draw a picture and put it in the drawer of your desk. That is still copyrighted material. You have created it. It belongs to you. Okay, you can sell it, you can trade it, you can put it in your will and let someone else inherit it when you die. But either way, it is automatic and ubiquitous. Okay, it is going to happen when you create something. Okay. Now, why is that important? Okay, well, obviously, when we're talking about buying, selling, and trading, that's where the importance comes in, because that's how what makes the world go around, right? So you wouldn't want someone to rip off a creation on YouTube. This is how YouTubers make their money, okay? If they create something original, they don't want people to steal it or copy it and then put it on their channel and then get credit for it, okay? And then all those followers and all that support and all that time and money, that all goes to someone else when they were the original person to make it, okay? So that's why this is important. All your work is protected by copyright, okay? And it is your right to give and protect your work, creations, and ideas. Okay, now if anybody were to use your stuff, okay, now we know YouTubers, they like to do all sorts of things with other people's content, okay? They, at minimum, have to follow the fair use laws, okay? Now we're going to talk about fair use in just a minute, so keep that in mind. And be thinking about how it is that people can use other people's work in YouTube without getting dinged or getting in trouble legally, okay? So if you're ever and worry about that, you always want to give credit by citing your information on their new creation, okay? So you know how some people will say, okay, well, I took it from this guy said this, I'm not taking credit for it, okay? That's usually a good ethical way to make sure that you're not in violation, okay? But we're going to go into fair use in just a second. Now, some real-life examples here. I was pretty interested in this when I figured out that whenever I heard the song I Will Always Love You, I always thought it was Dolly Parton, okay, that wrote it and sang it. But anytime I mentioned that song or I heard it mentioned, people would always say, oh, well, that's a Whitney Houston song, So when I looked into it, just a couple weeks ago, I was watching a documentary and I found out that Dolly Parton was indeed, she was the original creator of the song. She wrote that song, okay? And she sang it before Whitney Houston. And she ended up making tons of money off of Whitney Houston's record, because although Whitney Houston did own the record and she did have her own arrangement, she made something, she transformed it into something new. The original song and the words were Dolly Parton's. So she got paid a lot of money for her original work because it was copyrighted, and she did not sell that copyright. Okay, so that's a little fun fact there. Protected works. Okay, so when you're doing your research or you're taking from things, what is protected under copyright? That would be just about anything under the sun that you can think of. There's music, writings, visual arts, dance choreography, movie, computer software, a lot. Mostly everything can be argued to be protected under copyright, unless there's some certain indirect ways that things can be outside of copyright, and we're going to talk about that with public domain and fair use. Now, public domain, okay? Depending on the type of work, certain copyrights can expire, okay, after a period of time, in which case they can become public domain. So, Disney is one of those huge companies that doesn't want their characters to be used in any other way besides their original purpose, okay? So they don't want their characters being used in other businesses or by other businesses. But after a certain number of years, it's about 15, 20 years, depends on what it is and what the litigation is, their characters can be used in public domain, okay? So an example would be Disney themselves. They created a lot of movies based off of fairy tales, like Hans Christian Andersen's Little Mermaid. They made a movie based off of that character, okay? They obviously changed it up quite a bit, okay? But the fairy tales that they pulled from, Sleeping Beauty, Little Mermaid, Snow White, all of those are fairy tales that were written from previous authors, but they've been in the public domain for so long that they are able to use it without worrying about paying for the rights. Okay. Now, when we're talking about paying for the rights, we talk about things called royalties, and royalties are fees you pay to use copyrighted material in your own works. So, what I thought was interesting is when it becomes close to holiday season, there's a lot of commercial jingles out there that use songs that are in the public domain. So when we think about songs that are in the public domain, you would say like Jingle Bells or the Happy Birthday song or Mary Had a Little Lamb. All of those are songs that we use, okay? And they can use the jingle, right? And they can put any kind of words or message they want into that, okay? If you've noticed, a lot of YouTubers use the same types of audio tracks, okay? And that's because it's free and copyright free, okay? And that's in the public domain. And I'm going to give you some links here in the presentation that you might be able to follow to get to those free copyright websites. Now, consequences of ignoring copyright. Okay, I think some of you guys are already familiar with the term plagiarism. We're not going to go too far into that. But ignoring copyright is often commonly referred to as cheating, stealing, or plagiarism. All right? You could at best tarnish your reputation. Okay, so teachers are going to have trouble trusting you. But you could also be sued. Okay, you could be kicked out of college. You could be expelled for multiple infractions. You could be, you could lose credit. At this school, you get a 0 on the assignment. So it's best not to ignore copyright. Now, I know we're going to talk about fair use and how we're protected as educators and students. But it is always good to give credit where credit is due. Okay, that's the ethical way to do things. So if you aren't sure, okay, if you're going to get in trouble, always cite. Okay, always cite anything that you use. Okay, unless you're sure that you can use it for free without worries. Okay, so ain't nobody got time for that. Okay. What if you don't have time to make everything from scratch? Okay, obviously, you've got jobs, you've got dates, you've got games. You don't want to make everything from scratch, and you certainly don't want to have to ask permission for every single thing that you use on the internet. So, that's where fair use comes into play. Okay? If what you're using is protected under fair use, that means you can use a part of the work, but not copy the whole thing. You can use a picture off of a website. You can paraphrase or quote things from an article. You can take a snippet from someone else's YouTube video. You can modify it. You can put voice over it. You can put little doodles on it. As long as you're adding to the work, you can use it for educational purposes without financial gain. Now, that's the main thing that covers most of what we do here in school. So, as a student, if you're using things primarily for your own research, okay, you're not gaining from it in any other way, and you're not harming the original creator, okay, by trying to charge for it, then you should be covered under fair use. Okay. So, you have to make your own judgment call on some of these things. Okay, but these are some main guidelines for fair use. Now, copyright helpers. All right. There's a site called Creative Commons. All right. This is what I used a lot when I was a student, and I still use it quite a bit now, because I don't want to have to worry about, okay, well, is it copyrighted material? Can I use it? Do I need to source it? If you go to Creative Commons, it'll give you a whole slew of and it'll let you search by theme, or it'll let you search pictures, video, audio, anything that you want to look through to use. Okay, those are sources that have given their permissions and forwent their copyright, so that way people can use their stuff for free. Okay, you can use the filter on Google. Okay, for copyright for things that are not copyrighted. Also, if you need pictures, okay, this Pix4Learning site. It's a very good source. You type in whatever you want. You can find pictures copyright free. And then you've got audio clips.